Hey audio friends, welcome back to the channel. MrAyrit here. Have an interesting video for you today. We're looking at closed back headphones today. Specifically, we're looking at the Hifiman R9, except we're not looking at one or two. We're looking at three different versions of them, okay? Courtesy of JM Audio. So he sent these, well, actually he sent these to Wave Theory, and then Wave Theory sent them to me. I had a conversation with him about, his process and stuff like that. So we'll get into all that too as we're talking about this. So we'll kind of go over the differences between these different iterations here of this headphone, starting with the stock R9, which, spoiler, I'm not a huge fan of. Okay, so, first, we got to talk about what this thing looks like. I mean, pretty awesome, right? No, they're not. They're goofy looking, okay? They're huge cups. I mean, it's obviously Hifiman's attempt at kind of like mimicking that old kind of classic Sony. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head. I think it was like $10,000 or something like that. Crazy. Sought after in the audiophile market now. And they have some other models too that have this cup style, but maybe in like wood and things like that. So this is just like a painted cup. I mean, the red is okay, I guess. I mean, it's probably more flashy than I would want it to be. Preferably, I just want wood if it was me. You can see that these come stock with kind of the cheap current Hifiman headband. I'm not a huge fan of this. I wish they would have just stuck with, a suspension strap style for their cheaper headphones, even like something like the Sundara. I mean, I prefer the Aria style, but the Sundara one's okay too. Just anything but this. Although this is better than their lowest end one, which comes on like the R70X or whatever. That's really flimsy and I don't know. That one's the worst, but this one's okay. I mean, the comfort on this thing is all right. Like, it's not terrible, but definitely I prefer the one with the Aria band on it when we're talking build. As far as the rest of the build goes, it feels pretty cheap to me. If you listen, like, this one is so much lighter than the JM modded ones because of all the stuff that he's got going on inside of here to tune this and improve the sound. So just for a minute here, let me just tap on this one. This is the stock one. Listen to it. You hear how kind of like hollow that sounds and how kind of resonant it is. Now listen to my favorite JM modded one, which is the most recent iteration. You hear the difference there? It's much more blunted. There's a lot more dampening and stuff going on in here. And then this is the previous generation JM mod. Again, this one feels super solid, and this one's really heavy, so there must be a lot going on in this one here. So, let's talk stock sound on the R9, and then we'll get into the most recent JM edition, and we'll talk about that, my perception of that one. Then we'll draw a couple comparisons here, maybe to the Sundara closed, and then probably even to the T60 Argons over here, which have been kind of my favorite closed back up to this point. Okay, obviously I didn't comment on the cable. Hifiman cables, are nothing special. They're fine, but they're nothing really, it's nothing to talk about really. You're probably going to want another cable. I mostly use these with a hard audio system, and yeah, so that's what my testing was mainly with. As far as source gear, I use these with a wide variety of things, including my little X-Can, the Quicksilver, the XUO TA10R. I got the Topping DX1 over there. So I use them kind of my Eddy Current ZDT Junior. So I use them on a wide variety of things. These are a dynamic driver headphone. They're not terribly hard to drive, but I did find like I didn't love them off the X-Can. So I do think a little bit more power is probably preferable. They played good with the tube amps. I really liked it with the T10R actually. Probably the best, ironically enough, because I don't think that amp really stands out as super special, but I mean, it did resonate with these pretty well. Okay, so stock sound, murky, echoey, hollowy, like just very blunted sounding. I don't know. I did not like the stock R9 sound at all. It just, there's nothing pops. It just all sounds kind of muffled and murky, and I just, there's nothing great going on about it. Like I'm honestly was pretty shocked at how dull and just how I just didn't like it at all, okay? So moving on. So the JM mod, surprisingly, like I wouldn't have thought that after hearing the stock ones, I was pretty turned off. And then I put on the JM mod ones. I tried the older one here, and this you can see has a different kind of metal style headband on it. And he did tell me that he does custom order these. So he gets them manufactured to his spec. They're not just the generic ones, but this one's significantly heavier. This one was a lot bassier than the newest iteration. And another thing that he told me is, when you order them, you can kind of make some requests as like, you want it bassier, do you want it to be brighter? He can play around with some of the mods to tweak the sound for you. But again, I'm going to mainly be focusing on the sound of the latest iteration. So obviously I prefer it with the Aria band. It's very comfy like that. And the sound with this is a pretty rich sound. The bass over stock is much tighter, much more texture. And also on the upper end of things, it is also, it's got a lot more sparkle up there. It's got a lot more clarity up there, a lot more detail and information on the upper and lower ends, or really throughout the whole spectrum, if I'm being totally honest. I would say that it's a pretty well-balanced headphone. As far as mids go, it's really pretty mid-forward. It's honestly pretty forward in general, I would say, especially compared to like the T60 Argons into the stock R9. Like all the information is kind of right there. You don't have to like dig into the music to get it. Like it's presented like right up front for you. That's not to say that there isn't some soundstage, because there is some soundstage and some decent imaging and separation going on in these. It's not like Argon size soundstage, but it's adequate. It's definitely adequate. So all around, I'm pretty impressed with what JM has done here to take something that I consider to be a pretty poor headphone and turn it into one that's really quite enjoyable. Timbre I thought was good. Again, rich. This one has a really nice rich mid-range to it. Is probably the best, most standout thing about this headphone, is what I would say. And then so now if we start to pull some contrast again to some other things like the Sundara closed, I really think these are quite good, honestly, if you're looking for just like a really clean, little bit brighter tilting headphone. You're not going to get as rich of a mid-range here. You're not going to get as much low end as on the JM Mod R9, but you know, there's some good detail here. And if you want just a super clean sounding closed back, I think this is one that's worth looking at. And I have a review of that, you know, which I'll link to down below as well. The other closed back that I have on hand here, this gets a little bit tougher, right? This is the T60 Argons. I really like these. These are also a richer, fuller sounding closed back. The real name of the game with the Argons here is width and separation, which they do really well, better than I would say the JM R9. At the same time, the vocals are kind of sucked back a little bit, so you don't get as, like this headphone, I always think of the Argon as much more of the sounds are kind of out there and you kind of go reach out and you listen to what you want to listen to. Again, that contrasts the JM mod where it's kind of all just right up there, ready for you to access. So I like them both. I actually like all three of these. Let's get the other R9s out of the way here. But if we're talking all three of the JM Mod R9, the T60 Argons, and the closed Sundara, I really think these are all quite good closed back headphones, and they're all about the same price. I'm not really even sure which one my preference would be for. It kind of depends on the music that I'm listening to and the mood that I'm in that day. I could see reaching for any of them if I'm being totally honest. You know, again, if you want something a little bit cleaner, that's the Sundara closed back. If you want something that's wider and a little more distant, and you know, has pretty impressive soundstage for a closed back, that's probably the T60 Argons. And if you want just kind of like an all-arounder that's a little more, you know, up front, but still kind of has a rich tone to it, that's probably the JM mod. Now, as far as technicalities go, I'd probably give that to the Sundara, honestly, overall, as far as just like how much detail is in it. And then I would probably say, honestly, that the JM Mod R9 maybe ekes out the Argons a little bit, but that could just be kind of a presentation in that I feel like the details are more, again, more up front on the JM R9 mod. So yeah, I mean, if you're in the market for a closeback, I would look at all these, and I would look at the 17.7X Go. I do like all of these for a closeback option. They are probably my 4 favorite closebacks at this point in time. So not sure how helpful that is for you, but they're all decent headphones. Again, I would steer clear of the stock R9, but what's cool is you can probably, with both JM and Ryan from Mod House, you can communicate with them. They're both great dudes. As far as I can tell, I've talked with both of them quite a bit here as I've been testing out their headphones and things like that. And, just seem to be cool guys that are trying to get these headphone companies up and running. And I really appreciate what they're doing. And they both have some pretty interesting stuff coming out too, as far as actual, their own headphone designs and not just other modded headphones. So definitely keep a lookout for those, and maybe even we'll be able to do some interviews and podcasts with those guys here before too long. I hope. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thanks for tuning in. If you've tried any of these headphones, I always love when people can drop down their own opinions down in the comment section below. Certainly, if you have any other questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you to JM Audio for sending out, the R9s to test out, and thanks for taking the time to have a conversation with me. Thanks to Hifiman for sending me the Sundara, and thanks to Ryan at Mod House for making my Archons. Love them all. Okay, have a good one, guys. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.